Alright everybody, well uThermal's done it. He's got a 1 Terran Grandmaster vs 7 insane Cheetah 3 Protoss AI video. We thought Immortals were too much, Carriers were too much, Storms were too much. We already saw Goblin find a way to defeat it in Protoss vs 7 Protoss using Mass Disruptor and abusing the fact that apparently if he doesn't build flying units, the Protoss AI won't build flying units against him. We know that's not the case for Terran though. So air units are going to be a problem, Immortals are going to be a problem, Storms are going to be a problem. Let's take a look.
Obviously, always want to show it, start of the game. Now, it's actually, I only discovered this recently, but you can just easily host an offline game and you don't have to wait for the, 10-second countdown, which is actually fantastic. Now, if this is your first 1v7...
Alright, real quick pause. When he said that, I was like, wait, what? How do you host this offline game? And I think you could do this if you maybe are offline. I know you can go in and still play campaign and stuff, but I'm not sure what maps you'd be able to host and how it works. But what you can actually do, and I just found this out after spending like 10 minutes looking this up, you right-click. When you go to host a map, say you click on Cosmic Sapphire, rather than left-clicking on it and going create game, right-click and go create offline game. And you can actually just create one with 0 lag. So especially if you guys are doing this, you live further away from the servers, that's going to make it easier for you. And like he said, it gets rid of that 10-second countdown, so it just speeds things up. Cool little tip. I never knew that till now.
Insane AI challenge you guys are watching, let me just quickly explain why it's difficult. The difficult part is that you need to defend from 6 AIs on the other side of the map who all have more money than you. Cheetah 3 AIs make more money, and they map packs, it will blindly counter your units, while dealing with your neighbor who is overly sensitive. Now this is a different map that I've normally played on, and you guys can tell the action is going to begin immediately. This is how sensitive the neighbor actually is. I built a depot in my own base, and the probes are going to be pulled immediately. Now, the reason I chose this map, you guys will see it right away. You could wonder, like, why would you play this map when you're not even allowed to build at all, right? But you guys will see it soon enough. Now, here, it's very important that you micro this super well. As you guys can tell, I haven't lost an SCV yet. And because the AI doesn't micro the probes very well, this is actually possible. And this is a relatively easy way to deal with.
Wait a second, did he actually not lose one? I could have sworn he lost one. Let's double check that. We're going to quickly audit his micro, okay? I thought he lost 1 SCV. Okay, so keeping an eye on it, you can see that he's kind of like, okay, he's got 1 SCV getting in the orange, another one in the orange. He pulls one of them back. He's got to pull that other orange SCV back. Okay, he pulls both of them back. Perfect micro. That's actually really well done. You guys notice that basically as the units get in the red or the orange, he just clicks it on the minerals, and the moment it's not an attacking unit, it has lower attack priority. So the enemy workers aren't going to target it until all of his attacking units are actually dead. So that's actually a really cool little tidbit there. Very nice micro to start things off. And he's going to go for a barracks now. So this is really weird that he's chosen this map. I can't wait to see what the hell's going on here.
This map is because it has a ramp into the main. It has relatively little bases. It has a ramp that you can wall with 3 buildings. And why 1v7 against Protoss AIs is so difficult is that I've noticed if you have a regular wall off with Tank Liberator setup, I've mentioned it in previous videos, you get straight up A moves. Like Protoss players, the AI units, in particular Immortals, they don't really care about your tanks and libs and walls. They just A move straight through it. So I really need the best defensive setup possible to be able to complete this challenge, which is on this map where you have a ramp that you can wall off relatively easily. Now, yeah, that's pretty much why I'm playing on this map. You're going to be able to see it in a little bit. Now, the hardest part, obviously, is what just happened. I've lost a lot of mining time already. You can tell my factory is incredibly late. But I've timed it out well enough that I'm actually going to be able to do this. Now, I'm going to make 1 Marine. Actually, I'm going to make 2 Marines here. Because even if my neighbor already lost a lot of workers, they always have a lot more workers. Like I mentioned before, Cheetah 3 AIs have so much money. He still has a bunch of workers. Now, one thing that's important here is notice that I'm making my buildings on the top. Sometimes if you make too many buildings close to the bottom, the neighbor keeps pulling the workers over and over, and then you lose a little bit too much money. Now I've built a depot again close, but now I already have 2 Marines, so it's fine. And this way I will be able to deal with him efficiently. Now this is pretty much it for the early game strategy. The early game is super important. You need to get this micro down. Notice how all my SCVs are red HP. If you really want to do it perfectly, you can also move all your red HP SCVs to the top of the mineral line, as you can see I did here, so they're less likely to die to probes actually coming in. Now, one thing that is...
So this is already crazy, because he's essentially neutering his ally, or not his ally, but the guy who's sharing a base with him so quickly. It's giving him a massive advantage. We've got to remember, though, one of the advantages of keeping the neighbor alive is you can use them as a hostage to bait the other AI into attacking before they're ready, and they'll attack in a more disorganized fashion because in their minds, or in their programming, we should say, they're trying to help the ally. So if he ends up finishing this player off, he's not going to be able to take advantage of that.
Essential is that you have two options, basically. You either have to kill your neighbor instantly or not attack him at all. And I know it sounds weird, but let me explain. If you attack your neighbor without him dying, his teammates are all gonna come and help, and the army is just too big for you to deal with. But once the neighbor surrenders, the other AIs don't longer consider him as a teammate, and they don't defend him anymore. So if you attack him, you have to kill him, or you just need to ignore him, basically. Now, I think here I killed so many workers that I could probably go for the kill. Here you go. These are probably his last 6 workers. Once I kill these, I might be able to go for the kill here. But it is really important that you do this well. And I have to say, guys, I am very grateful that these AIs don't micro the pros properly, because even that SCV right there, 5 HP getting away, that is extremely lucky. Obviously, a real player already would have killed 5 SCVs here, so that is fantastic. Now, this wall off, just like I said, is 3 big buildings, factory, barracks, and an engineering bay. And this is the most important discovery I've made for TVP challenge against the insane AI. Normally, I make 1 tank and a liberator, and I was never able to even get close to beating the Protoss AI. Like I said, I would always get straight up A moved. And eventually, I came to the discovery that it is just like 1v1. I'll explain this a little bit more detail if you guys want. Tanks are just not that great against Protoss units. Tank is not a very popular unit in TVP in a 1v1 pro match outside of openers. And it was pretty much the same here. The tanks just don't have enough value. As you can see here, my neighbor surrendered. I was actually very worried that he wasn't going to surrender, because then I would get attacked. But my neighbor surrendered, and that's going to buy me a little bit more time. Now, if you guys do it...
Yeah, so one of the big problems with siege tanks versus Protoss is they just don't do much damage to Archons and Zealots, which is almost always the front line, especially as these armies get big. So splash damage is great. They do massive damage to like Stalkers, Colossus, and those sort of units. Kind of do a lot of damage to Immortals, but Immortals are so tanky as well. Yeah, and the problem is because they're ground units, they can get jumped on by so many different units and attack them. Whereas if you think about Protoss anti-air, all they've really got is, well, Archons aren't going to get in range of those Liberators easily at all. Stalkers are very fragile and get annihilated by Libs. So this is actually really smart. Not to mention, we've seen in the past, Liberators tend to bug the AI out. So it seems like what he's going to do, I'm guessing, and we're going to find out, heavy Lib, and then escalate your anti-air to insane levels of Viking turret, right? And maybe just skip siege tanks for the entire game. I'm also curious if he's going to add ghosts. Maybe take a gamble in the comment section if you guys think he'll add ghosts. I don't think he will, because I think there's going to be too much stuff to EMP, but maybe at some point you add like 15 ghosts and you can just keep EMPing everything coming your way as well. It might work really well.
If you enjoy this kind of challenge, by the way, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This is my 3rd one. I've done attempts against Zerg, attempts against Terran, and this is my best attempt against Protoss so far. And make sure, if you enjoyed this, to watch the other ones as well. I think they were really cool. I think the Terran one was maybe even my favorite. The strategy was very deep there, so make sure to check it out. Maybe I'll even post it in the description if I remember. Also, later in this video, I will reveal some cool statistics, including the amount of attempts this took me to complete. So yeah, that'll be later on. Now, for the unit composition, I mentioned that you don't want to make tanks, and instead of that, I got the reactor on my starport. I'm gonna make mass liberators, and I'm gonna make a lot of turrets. Now, if you actually wonder, why would you make turrets? Because doesn't the insane AI skip area units? Well, they actually make a ton of phoenixes. And if you don't, like, phoenixes are surprisingly tanky, you know? They attack fast because they attack while moving. So if you don't have turrets to gun them down instantly, you will simply just be in trouble. And I know this might be surprising. You guys could say that, you know, tanks are going to be good, but trust me, guys, if your opponent has 30 Immortals knocking at your door, the tanks are only going to encourage them to attack even harder, so this is definitely the best way. I'm also making a 2nd starport here, so I can actually go for more and more Liberators. Now, if you don't kill... I'm actually not completely sure how this works. I've just noticed a trend from my attempts, and that is if I don't kill my neighbor, but also don't attack him, they always tend to attack at about 6:37 minutes. So it makes me wonder that there might be, not like, how do you put this? Maybe not like my teammate is under attack alert, but more like a lower level threat that I'm like close to their ally or something like this, because normally I feel like I would have been attacked by now. I've got a little bit more time to set up, and I really wonder if there's something different between my neighbor not being attacked but being close to me, or straight up being dead, right? Now the next step in this build order is going to be to go for the fusion core. Obviously, liberators are going to benefit massively from having range, but first I need to spam turrets like crazy. There's the fusion core. Note how I didn't rush a third base, by the way. Like, normally you could, but it's really important that you deal with the Protoss attacks appropriately. I noticed a small difference between playing against Protoss and the other races. I feel like the other races are definitely more aggressive. What Protoss AIs tend to do is quite literally make an Omega army and then attack. I feel like the other races kind of attack a lot more, but Protoss really tends to make an Omega army and then attack, and I've suffered from this a lot, because in a lot of my games I would feel like, this is actually, this is going pretty well. I'm surviving, it's pretty relaxed, but then at some point they have an army that's so big, it just blocks the entire screen and you die, and you guys are definitely going to see that Omega army in action later in this game. Now, I'm going to get my extra bases here. Now, there's a few...
Yeah, 7.5 minutes and no sign of them. It makes me nervous, man, because if they're not attacking yet, like, yes, he's getting a lot of free room to breathe, but also it's like, damn, if you knew they weren't going to attack to this point, you'd probably have taken the third base earlier. Liberator range and then positioning his libs a little bit further back is going to be really nice. I'm just nervous because I've seen the density of those armies that comes through, and as good as Liberators are, unless the AI bugs out really hard, I feel like they might just have so much stuff that they can roll through. Now, what's weird is he also said they only build Phoenix. I've seen them build Carriers before. I don't know if I've seen them build Tempests. But if they don't build Carriers, it is going to massively simplify things, because Interceptors take forever for your turrets to clear up. And if there's those plus Phoenix running in, like, I think he'd be in huge trouble. We've definitely seen them do some drops later on in the games as well, but usually it's like very small drops and only much later on. So it's interesting to see. I feel like the Protoss AI might be the simplest, and then it's just going to make a big mass of units and then just smash in the front. We're just going to see, can 20 Liberators hold a ramp?
Few more steps to this. There's one thing that's really important about this map in particular, and is that you can actually harass the gold base. Remember in the 1v7 Terran episode, that was actually not a thing. We were not harassing at all. We were just focusing on quite literally the perfect defense. But on this map, you can actually deny the gold base. Now here you can see the first attack. This does not quite look like an Omega army. I think this is only one AI attacking me at the same time. It's probably the one that's really close to me. I noticed that the barracks already took a lot of damage. I do think these challenges are always very misleading, because sometimes holding the attack looks so comfortable like that, you kind of start thinking like, am I going to complete this easily? But then the real waves arrive and you're like, oh yeah, never mind that. That is, not quite what I had envisioned.
Never let your guard down. He knows. He's probably played at least, I think, 200 run-throughs, maybe closer to 300 now of all these different verse AI challenges. So he's traumatized. I mean, remember the first one when he finally beat it? There was like 15 minutes of him clearly having the game won, and he just looked so stressed over on his camera. I think he's a little bit more relaxed now that he's used to the flow of how these games go.
And you also need an actual absurd amount of turrets. Now that's another army. Looks like it's about 2 AIs from the mini-map. Now one thing that is actually a little bit scary you wouldn't expect is that the Protoss AI makes Storm. And you know, Storm is not usually a big counter to a Liberator, but if they Storm on top of 10 Libs, it actually hurts. Now, if you guys were looking at the camera wondering why I was looking down there, it's because my cat was nagging me. And I was telling him I was busy with something very important, so there you go. Don't worry, I'll still feed him after. No worries, guys. I take care of my cat. The cat's name is Nova, actually. Because there's probably a few people that are curious about that, so there you go. The cat's name is Nova. Now, notice how I'm getting the turret range upgrade. I really think this is an important upgrade in every single AI challenge, every single matchup. Like, it's just so good. It's gonna help you out so much. And here is a very important moment. Remember that in the TVT against 7 insane AI Terrans, I talked about how getting upgrades is probably not smart and a waste of money, but the armor might be worth it. For this challenge, upgrades are actually very important. I'm gonna share a super big detail with you guys, not just for these challenges, but also for 1v1 competitive games. And it's that Liberators become exponentially better with +2 attack. Like, it's crazy how much better they get, and it has a big reason. Stalkers get 3 shot by Liberators, but if they have +2, it's only 2 shots. If you have an EMP, then it's 1 shot instead of 2 shots, which is half the shots, right? So against Protoss, getting +2 air attack is actually a must. And besides that, you guys are definitely gonna like this. I figured out for this TVP challenge, the best possible late game transition is actually to go for battlecruisers. And battlecruisers benefit massively from upgrades as they attack, I believe, I want to say 6 or 8 times a second or something like this. It is very fast anyway, so every single attack they do does an extra damage. And it's also a downside, because if your opponent gets armor upgrades, then your battlecruisers do so much less damage. So the least thing you can do is negate that. And if you're lucky, and in this case not lucky because I know the AI doesn't like upgrades, BCs do massive amount of damage when you get +3 attack and they only have 1 armor, 2 armor, or in some cases even 0 armor upgrades. So
especially if they don't build Tempests. If the AI doesn't build Tempests, I mean, Void Rays and Tempests are the best units from Protoss to counter battlecruisers. If they don't build either of those, BCs are god tier, because the Stalkers suck. You've also got the Liberators, which, like he said, he's going to get those upgrades, which means he's going to get to the point where he's 2-shotting Stalkers if he adds Ghosts 1-shotting them. And that's something you will actually see in pro games semi-regularly. It's pretty rare the Terran gets there, but if the Terran's up on 5-6 bases, the standard transition is you start adding those air upgrades. And you'll see Maru do this. There's a point in the game where he has Liberator range, about 10 Liberators, Ghosts, and his +2 air attack kicks in. And Stalkers become worthless versus that army if the Liberators are sieged up. If the Protoss ambushes him, they'll still do alright, and they can shoot the Liberators down before they siege. But if they're sieged up, EMP lands on the Stalkers all just get 1-tapped. And it's like insane how much supply and money goes down the drain. So +2 libs, great in 1v1 TVP. Apparently pretty good in 1v7 as well. Good thinking, uThermal.
So notice how I'm getting even more starports now. Now this is when the siege is beginning. I'm making a lot of turrets here so I can safely siege his base. I actually thought this was a gold base, but I guess only the base on the middle, like bottom and top side, are gold bases. So it's only 1 gold base I will be able to deny, but still more than good enough. Now for this challenge, similar to the Terran challenge, I figured out a perfect number for Liberators. You want to get 25 Liberators, and I know it sounds insane, but keep in mind we do not have tanks to shoot Marines or something like that, right? So for this challenge, you want to get up to 25 Liberators, and that is the count I notice is finally enough to deal with the ground army, accompanied by probably 40 turrets or so.
Notice he did the supply drops there as well. So not only is he talking about the composition, he's realized, look, you've only got these 3 bases to mine from. Get the 3 orbitals and then just supply drops only from here. So he's going to save maybe, if he does that for 6 depots, he saves 600 minerals worth of value. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it'll add up because obviously his bases will mine out in the next 5-6 minutes and he's going to be starving from then on.
Now, something you guys will really like that I just did, I'm not sure if you noticed, but at this point in the game, I realized I had enough money for now. So from, I think it was 149 supply on, I'm only dropping supply depots for my orbitals so I can actually save money by not having to make depots, which I believe is going to end up being about 7 depots, so that's going to be about 700 minerals saved, which, as you guys know by now in these challenges, is actually super important. In this case, it's going to be 7 more turrets. It could also be almost 2 more BCs, depending on the ratio. I see I'm still working on those upgrades. I'm sieging that base. I'm also going to siege the base on the left at some point, but in any case, you must always have your Liberators covered by turrets on every side. If you lose a few too many units, you will already not be able to replace them anymore money-wise. So always make sure to repair your units, make sure to have them covered by turrets. As you can see here, I unsieged all the Liberators that were, well, not quite low HP, but lower HP than full, so I can repair them up. Now here's my first battlecruiser. Battlecruisers are actually super useful here. Because you have the position, so you can always harass these bases close to you and then just go back to your Liberators. And the Battlecruiser Liberator combo is actually sick because the AI tends to like blink forward, send their Void Rays forward to target the BC, and then if you have Liberator Siege plus turrets covering them, you actually have a fantastic cover. Now I did a small trick with the Liberator there. I'm just going to explain it slowly. Well, we might be getting attacked first, let's see. Liberators, I think they do not quite have... Yeah, you can see a lot of the Stalkers surviving on 1 HP if you look very closely. It's because there's no +2. Now this is... Oh my good... That is the Omega army I was talking about, guys. Look at this. I thought I was golden, and then I saw this freaking army doom up. That is just incredible. Now, it's always a little bit scary to harass with the PCs, because you kind of need them to Yamato the carriers. You can tell how much the turret count has dwindled. I lost pretty much all my turrets, besides I want to say about 7 that are below the Liberators there that you can't quite see. But yeah, that's definitely scary. Because if you don't have turrets, your Liberators will be very easy prey for the Void Rays, Phoenixes, and the carriers that they have.
The carriers added in so much tankiness, and oh my god, so many. That was such a huge army. That was such a huge army. Oh my god. What in the heck? Keep in mind as well, guys, that this is actually so cost inefficient. The Protoss army is so much more expensive. If the Protoss keeps doing that, they will run out of resources a lot quicker than the 40-45 minutes we often see from the Terrans and the Zergs. Zergs especially seem to take a long time to empty their banks, but I feel like the Protoss players doing that, they could empty their banks by the 25-minute mark.
Now, one thing that sucked here is they killed my eBay, and I tried to make it again, but I accidentally clicked the SCV away. So I might not be able to get my turrets back up in time, but I still have a good amount. And I have my battlecruiser to attack, which is fantastic. There you can see there was my final depot launch, 200 supply. I think I lost 6 or 7 depots from the orbital, which is really good. And now the BCs, you can tell they just do a massive amount of work. Now, killing the workers here, admittedly, is not the biggest damage you can do. The biggest damage you can do is actually trading efficiently with the army. Because, yeah, killing workers, like, to be fair, I'm almost mined out, and the AIs have mined... How many bases do they have, actually? There's 4, 5, 8... I think they have 13 bases, or 12. Should be about 12, that was a bit weird. I think there should be 12 or 13 bases anyway. And they make a little bit more money than me. So they've basically mined about 15 bases against 3. So these few workers I'm killing is not going to be the biggest deal. But I'm probably going to bait them to come back with their army. And then here I want to scan to see if there's any army nearby. To target my battlecruisers. And you can see there on the left side on the minimap that they're actually keeping army at home to deal with this. I think there's not a lot of anti-air in the army, that's why they're not sending them to my BCs. But in any case, keeping anyone's army at home is just a fantastic play.
The one thing I'd be worried about if I was uThermal is if this keeps their army back, it might convince the AI to mass their units up even more. And I feel like it's so funny because in the past ones it was like, oh, hold your ally or the guy that's sharing a base with you hostage, don't finish him off, and then lure their attacks in so they come in half-cocked. But I always feel like that's way better. But for him, he's like, oh no, we'll pin them back, we'll keep them back. And I'm like, well, his army's not getting that much stronger. He's just adding a few more battle cruisers, which basically they can Yamato carriers and not much else. What if there is a 1,000 supply army that hits him, right? For me, that's what I'd be worried about. I'd be like, oh, wouldn't you almost want to lure them into attacking you sooner rather than later? Apparently not, though. He's played this many, many times, of course. He's figured out what he needs to be worried about.
And then eventually I'm going to set up a really cool tactic on the left side where I use my battlecruisers to bait and use Liberators to finish off the units. Now, one thing I'm also not sure about for this challenge, similar to TVT, is whether getting building armor is a great idea. I think I am going to get it at some point, but I know turret range is great for this challenge. I know getting the air upgrades is great for the Liberators. I'm not quite sure about building armor because Protoss units especially, they hit very hard. Like Immortals do, you know, 55 damage so they have +1, for example, to a turret. If I get 1 armor, it doesn't really seem like it's going to change much. Now there you can see the Stalkers evaporate instantly. I think it's because we do have that +2. There you go. Doing so much damage. And this is very important. Yamatoing the carriers, that's what the battlecruisers are actually the best at here. I see I have about 7 BCs. I do need to bring them back home. They make Void Rays to counter the BCs. So you do need to be careful with that. But the turrets are going to be really good against the Void Rays. They are breaking through the E-base, but not much more than that. So that is fantastic for us. Now, in case you guys are wondering, I also tried some other stuff besides battlecruisers. I tried making Thors. And Thors, I think it's possible to win the game with Thors, but it is very difficult because Thors are basically good against the air units and Liberators against everything else. But Thors kill stuff quite slow, so if you have to go around and getting these trades, Here I was trying to repair the Liberator with Mule, but for some reason I couldn't. That was a little bit unfortunate there. But yeah, you can do it with Thors too, I believe, but they're just not quite as good as the BCs in this case because of all the terrain. You have to move out of your base. And one thing I know after trying a bunch of these challenges is that at some point the AI stops attacking you. You might be tempted to believe, oh.
So he's just about to make a point there, finishing about how Thors are hard to finish the game, right, compared to the BCs. But I also think it's hard on the defense. Like he said, they all get stuck behind each other, whereas the BCs, he can just come forward, shoot the carriers, even when they're in the back of the army, and it's much easier for him to move forward, move back, move in and out, to really tank with them as well, without ever really losing any of them. They've also got way more armor than Thors, which is great. Now, remember, he never actually got a chance to explain the Liberator micro point earlier. Maybe he gets to it later in the video, so let me explain. What he did earlier in the video with that Liberator is, rather than just telling it to siege a mineral line, he went back to it before it sieged, told it to stop moving in the position where it was going to siege, and then told it to siege. And the reason is, if you just click a Liberator from one side of the screen to the other to go siege, what's going to happen is it's going to start sieging up while it's still drifting forwards and decelerating. So it'll actually end up sieging closer to the target than it needs to. Whereas if you stop it moving, and then when it's stationary, tell it to siege at the edge of its range, it'll siege at the very limit of its range, which means that Liberator is just a little bit further back and safer. So a really cool detail that he was always paying attention to with the Liberator in the bottom left.
We've done it, it's over. But typically, when they stop attacking you, they'll still have a combined 600 supply. So if you then move out with some Thors, and they surround you with Zealot, Stalker and stuff, you're just gonna lose the Thors and that's it. Battlecruisers, however, can always blink back to safety, which is fantastic. Now here, I'm gonna start setting up my winning strategy, because I've defended. I got up to my 25 Liberators, like I said. I got 1,000,000 turrets up at the front. So I'm pretty sure that's gonna be defended. And now I'm gonna use this gold base, not really to deny it per se, but just to bait in units and keep good trades. Because keep in mind, right now these BCs look like they're doing God's work, right? Like if you look at this, you would think there's no way you can lose this. But remember that you win this by trading efficiently over 10 times, right? You need to trade basically one battlecruiser, if you think about it in resources, right? One battlecruiser, 400, 300, needs to kill 4,000, 3,000 for me, for it to be efficient enough for me. So I can never afford to lose one. Every time I lose one BC, you can basically see it that way, that I'm losing 4,000, 3,000. So you need to micro them super carefully. But this is the strategy I'm going to use to try and win out the game, right? Because I'm baiting all these units in. You see I have the turrets, I have the Liberators. I do have to be careful with these BCs because they're actually quite orange already. Now one thing that is a little bit of a...
The Colossus walking into the... I mean, this is hilarious. He's baited them into a death corner. And notice he's clicking underneath the battlecruisers to keep them all stacked on top of each other. So if you don't do that, they'll naturally bump into each other and they'll space out. But by keeping them all on top of each other, they can all shoot at once, while only a few stalkers and carriers can shoot back at him. Really good move. But you gotta wonder, wouldn't moving a few Liberators over here be better? And I gotta say, looking at the size of the army he has here, definitely he should bring 4 or 5 more Liberators. Just having one Liberator means he is taking a lot of hit point damage on the battlecruisers, and you can repair those from 1 hit point to max hit points for only 25% of the original cost. But he still needs to be 10 times or more efficient with the BCs. Like he said, each BC needs to kill 7,000 resources worth of units. So he can't be wasting hit points. Even just a bit of damage, a bit of the paint getting scratched off costs him a lot in the long run.
Scary moment is I could send them back to repair. You see that one? Oh, that one battlecruiser is getting red HP. I can't lose that. Oh, thank good. Oh my god, I can't believe that actually lived. That is a blessing by the AIs, really. And then they actually lost the carrier to the turrets. Now, I was going to say it's really scary to move back the BCs to repair. Because if you move back the BCs, the AI is not going to be baited anymore. And they could attack you at any time at the front. And if you then are repairing 8 battle... Oh, I have 10 BCs. That is 60 supply not competing in the fight, right? So that is actually huge. Now, I do think 25 libs is enough to defend that front. So it's going to be alright. Now, I've also made a Raven. In case you guys are wondering what the Raven is for, it's because... What I mentioned before, battlecruisers attack 6 to 8 times per second. If you put an anti-armor missile down on anything... Your battlecruisers do just 1,000,000 more damage. Like, it's actually just incredible here.
That's so cool. There's been a bunch of people in Twitch chat who are like, would a Raven be good here? And I think the first person asked it, and he wasn't even really heavily into BCs. And I was actually like scoffing in my head. I was like, that's kind of silly, man. Come on. Liberators don't care. They're already doing 85 damage a shot with +3. Like, it doesn't matter. But with the battle cruisers, oh, heck yeah, it matters. Like he said, not only do the upgrades matter, an anti-armor missile is -3 armor to units it affects. So if you're giving +3 to a battle cruiser, which shoots 6 times a second, it's like doing 18 more damage a second. It's massive. So really cool to see that he's added the Raven in. It's kind of the cherry on top of the cake.
Here you can see they are making more and more Void Rage to deal with it. I do have to be scared of that. The carriers here, funny enough, at this point, the carriers were scary before, now not anymore. And the reason is the exact same thing I mentioned with the battlecruiser. The carrier is basically the battlecruiser of Terran or of Protoss in the way that it shoots a lot of times. It has 8 interceptors that attack once. And the AI doesn't like making upgrades. So at this point I have +2 or +3 armor, I'm not sure which one. And these interceptors are just doing absolutely no damage because they don't have attack upgrades. Battlecruisers also have, I believe, 2 natural armor.
It's three natural armor. He's about to correct himself, don't worry. uThermal knows. It's 3 base armor in the battlecruiser with +3, that's 6 armor. Interceptors are doing 2 times 5 damage. So you might think, well, that's -1. That means the interceptors are actually doing no damage. But the minimum damage you can do in StarCraft 2 is 0.5, half a damage. So it means each time the interceptor goes pew pew, does its 2 times 5 damage, it effectively does 2 times half a damage. It does 1 damage. A battlecruiser has 550 hit points. It's going to take 550 interceptor shots to kill a battlecruiser. That's ridiculous.
Could be 3, but 3 sounds like a lot. But they have a lot of natural armor, plus more armor upgrades, and if the carriers don't have good upgrades, they just don't do any damage. So here, the Void Rays and the Stalkers are actually the scariest thing, and maybe even the Storms. But the carriers are actually not quite doing a whole lot here. Now, this is a strategy I thought was really sick. I'm just going to bring in more and more libs. Normally, AIs hate Liberator zones, but here they're getting baited in by the battlecruiser. So these Liberators are actually going to deal an incredible amount of damage.
It's the ultimate twerking strat. Those BCs shake those big battlecruiser booties. Those big battlecruiser booties, and those Protoss units just cannot resist. They're like, oh, they're just running in there. Yeah, I've never seen the AI shove so many units into the Liberator zones. Normally, they try and avoid it.
As you can see, I'm tempted to bring more and more libs. It is a bit scary because I told you guys about the 25 Liberator count, right, that you really want at the front. Right now I have 5 here, so there's only 20 at the front. But at the same time, I can see his entire army. So if I react fast enough, this should always be okay. Now, it's really hard to count, of course. But this is an incredible amount of resources that I'm killing. That is so many units going down on the Protoss side. This might actually be... I didn't expect it to be with battlecruisers. But this might be the most efficient I've traded in any of these challenges. Like, this is actual incredible efficiency. Now, one thing I think I didn't explain, but is actually important. Notice how a little bit earlier, before I wanted to harass the bases, I already made turrets around the edges of my base. And that is very important to deny warp prisms. Because in these challenges, you always want all of your units at the front. You don't have... in a normal game, you would have a few medevacs with Stim Marines to, you know, defend the prism. But here you don't have that. You only have Liberators, so you need to make turrets to prevent the prism. Here, the AI actually did a very anti-AI move, I feel like, and suicided the prism into my turret. But still, I killed the prism, and that is going to be good enough cleanup for me. But because of the turrets, they didn't get in earlier, so that's nice. I'm sure you guys have noticed that there's always, like, 6 random war prisms flying around, and it's mostly because they couldn't get in because I was denying them with the missile turrets.
There is a red hit point PC he's got to watch out for here. That red hit point PC it's freaking me out a little bit.
Now you can tell my money is still really good. That's mostly because the efficiency has been insane. Now after repairing these BCs, it's going to go down a little bit. One thing that I wasn't quite sure about, admittedly, is in the TVT challenge, my strategy was super specific. So I had a very set unit composition, and I wasn't going to make more units than that, even if I lost my units, right? So here, I have 10 BCs and 25 libs, and I have 16 supply available. Now I started 2 more battlecruisers, but I actually wasn't quite sure if it was the right idea, because you can tell I don't have that much money. Maybe it would have been better to save my money for repairs instead, but there's one massive advantage of this strategy here, guys, and that's that I will be able to take this gold base with some minerals and gas left. Like that is actually, it looks like to me, probably about at least 2,000 minerals left. And yeah, I don't know how much gas there is, I can't tell, but I would guess with how much I've denied, there's probably like 1,500 gas or so left. So I'm actually gonna have more money than normal.
They just feedbacked his Raven. Oh, and he's coming dangerously far forward. I actually think this is a really risky move. So he's gone from super turtle, super efficient. Now he's moving out. He's going, oh, minerals, gas, let's get it. The libs are coming far forward. His Raven got feedbacked, didn't die, but did get heavily damaged and lost its energy. It's a little scary. He might be jumping the gun.
In comparison to the AI, because I've denied this gold base, similar to against Zerg. In the Zerg challenge, I also denied the gold base. And that meal was not a manor meal. I wanted to repair this Liberator. I promise, guys, I'm not trying to BM the AI here or anything. Now, slowly, I'm going to siege forward. The Liberators, you need to use them very smart. I always recommend to be super patient in these because, trust me, no matter how many units you kill, they have more, way more. So, you see how I have a lot of Liberators back at home, and at some point I'm going to move them, but you really need to keep a lot of them sieged at all times because else you're going to be broken in some way. Now, I didn't want to transfer all of my SCVs to this base because I didn't want to lose them all to one attack. Basically, I wanted to have some left in case I lost them. Now, the AI actually remade that base on the right side, which I really want. Now, I do think getting turrets is always important. It's going to help so much with the Void Rays and the Phoenixes and the carries and stuff. It's just fantastic. Here, it even seemed like the AI got baited in because of the turrets. And here you can clearly see, by the way, how hard it would be with siege tanks. Because you can tell the Immortals just don't give a crap at all about my Liberator zones. They just walk straight through them. I think it might be because they have shields and the AI is just programmed to believe that they're quite literally immortal.
Dude, landing the command center while the Immortals were still alive, that's insane. Dude, that's ridiculous. Oh, Jesus. But dude, he's figured this out down to a T. These BCs are slaying. Like, their efficiency's out of control. Remember I said these Protoss might gas out, run out of resources by 25 minutes. So I actually feel like he's already smashing it. There's not many more air units. They built so many Void Rays and Carriers and Stalkers, those really expensive Archons and that sort of stuff. We're seeing mostly Zealots, Adepts, and Immortals. And because they're constantly streaming in a few units at a time, it feels like it's getting more and more efficient.
So yeah, you definitely get a lot of Liberators at all times to be able to prevent that. The Liberator is doing even more damage than the Battlecruisers do, right? In this case, against single high HP targets. Now more and more libs coming in. Repairing the BC is always going to be important. One behavior that I noticed that's a little bit weird by the AI is that if they're losing the fight overall, they would still retreat with the units that are winning the fight. And that might be a confusing explanation, but let me explain. If they have 12 Stalkers and 2 Phoenixes against 6 Liberators, the Phoenixes are going to fight your libs. But as soon as the Stalkers are dead, they kind of back off with the Phoenixes too. And there you can see what I was talking about. You have to have lib siege. They come from different angles. And now those Liberators are taking care of that army pretty much for free, which is fantastic. If I didn't have those libs, I would probably be losing this gold base right now, which is problematic. Notice how the money is getting lower and lower, by the way. Like,
mate, the only thing problematic is the slaughter I am watching, dude. I was like, oh, can he stop the Protoss? They're so elite. At this point, things have turned around. The Terran master race is slaughtering and genociding these poor Protoss, and I'm not very happy about it. It's disgusting, dude. He's literally shoving through the middle of the map. These BCs are untouchable. Like he said, there's no upgrades in the units. The BCs are just killing. They killed a carrier there before the Yamato even connected. 2 of his BCs started powering up the Yamato, and then they just went, oh, it's dead before we even get to finish casting it. Like, this is disgusting.
trust me when I say these games always tend to come down to the wire, so don't waste too much money. You can spend a little bit on turrets. If I could recommend the mineral to gas ratio to keep, it's really good to have about 1.5 to 2 minerals per gas. And with that, you should be able to afford most high-tech units such as Liberators, Siege Tanks, Battlecruisers. Like, they're all roughly in that ratio. Not all exactly, of course, but they are roughly there. Now, at this point, I'm going to be able to...
Of course, when he talks about that ratio, he's talking about what he keeps in the bank. That's in reserve for repair. So in case that went by anyone, I'm just clarifying that. I know some of you picked up on it. Basically, if he doesn't save that money, he can't repair the unit. So he says, look, the cost is relational to the unit's cost. So look, BC's libs are all somewhere in that, 4 to 3 range, something like that. BC's 400 to 300, Liberator's 150 to 150, 1 to 1. So he's like, oh, a little bit more minerals because I'm building turrets as well, and it should roughly even out. So it's actually insane the amount of repair money that he saved. And because that gold base, he's mining the whole thing. It feels like he's rich. This is the most dominating game I've seen so far from uThermal. He's actually becoming the man we want on the front lines once the singularity happens. I'm telling you guys, when Terminator happens, this guy might be John Connor. Is that his name? John Connor? Am I misremembering my movie? I feel like I said it and I'm like, is that right? Sarah Connor and Sean Connery. He's James Bond. It is John Connor. All right. Man, it's been a while since I watched Terminator. I gotta go rewatch Terminator. Only the 2 movies that actually exist. In case anyone out there, don't even speak to me. There's only 2 Terminator movies that have ever been made. Let me know if you agree or not. Anyone who doesn't, you will get banned.
Get access to this base, which is super nice. You see one AI is already surrendering, which is great. And that does give me a lot of confidence. As soon as the AI started surrendering, I've definitely lost games before after getting AIs to surrender, but most of the time it does, mean something very good for me. Now, what's great about the BCs is that you can basically commit with them forever, because even if they get red HP, you can teleport it back home and it's all good, which is fantastic. And this is actually really funny. Even though that AI is completely screwed, he hasn't surrendered yet. So his friends are still trying to help him. And you can see on the minimap, they're just trickling in a massive amount of units for free. Just because they're desperately trying to help their buddy. Which is a very logical thing to do in a team game, of course. But it's the same principle as against the 7 Terrans when I let one of them live. And basically force them to attack into me constantly. Instead of in one big wave. And that is what's happening here now too. Like the efficiency this game, I think it has been better than efficiency in any of my challenges so far. Like this is actually incredible. I can't wait to see some statistics at the end. That is just fantastic.
Yeah, maybe not John Connor. Maybe more like someone from Westworld who literally is like, hey, let's literally use the humanity of the machines against themselves. Like, I'm going to take your kid hostage and threaten to shoot it, and then you're going to run in and I'm going to shoot you, and then I'm going to shoot the kid anyway. That's essentially what uThermal's doing to the AI here. Once again, holding them hostage. Absolutely no love for the robots. What a psychopath.
Now, I'm not sure. Whenever the AIs don't surrender, it always feels like they have another base or another army, so that's something to keep in mind. Because only one of the AIs in the bottom left side surrendered, which means that one of them must have either an army or another base, I believe. Now, even though units always run away from liberator zones, you can always spread your liberator zones like I did on that right side base and kind of trap the workers. Because now they're actually still getting shot at and they have no idea where to go, as you can see. Now, I wanted to take that base with my SCVs, but freaking cannons are actually killing them. Alright, there we go. The AI was trying to rebuild a few Stargates, I believe, or a few Robos. Not quite sure what that was, but I didn't let him, and there's that. Now, the only thing left for me to do here is basically take that base on the right side. If I get that money, that will just secure everything completely. There we go. I think I'm gonna need 1 battlecruiser to take care of that. And you guys can tell, by the way, guys, how much DPS the 3-3 PCs actually have, right? Like, it's actually insane. I feel like normally I would not be eliminating even 1 AI already at 27 minutes in the game. But here I'm already going ham on a lot of bases. And that is just the freedom that the PCs give you. If you play Thors instead, you really couldn't have moved 10 Thors across the map in the way I moved these PCs across the map, you know? Like, there's absolutely no way. Now, at this point, since I have the gold base, I was very sure that I was going to win this game. Especially because I'm even mining from this base now. Now, it is long distance mining, but that is, that is just what you have to do, I guess. It's actually funny to notice that if I didn't mine from the gold base, I would pretty much be completely out of money by now, I think. Because I feel like I've mined about 2,000 2,000 minerals from that base on the left side. And from the gas, probably about 1k, I would guess, or maybe a little bit less. I don't think gas mines as fast, but still. I like how the Raven has just been chilling, by the way, because I felt like I never fought against a big enough clump of units that I wanted to anti-armor missile. And now I have so much energy, and I'm not even sure what to use it on. I might as well disable the Stalkers or something, I guess. You can see that's another few turrets and a few bases for me. You can tell he's still trying to mine from that base, but that's mine now. I feel like typically AIs are always sacrificing their probes. I feel like if you looked at my Terran challenge, for example, the AI would sacrifice all of their SCVs into me. Because I had the last mining base, but now I'm actually the one stealing their bases, so that feels like a little bit of vengeance, which is just fantastic. And you see, we're at 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this is just savage at this point, man. He's absolutely just steamrolling through them. I love this BC style as well, because it's like the moment he had the advantage, got those BCs together, it's just like driving a bloody bulldozer over his opponent's bases. And the 3-3 BCs are just so ridiculously efficient. We were talking about how good Libs and BCs are versus Protoss, but I mean, if they came in with like 15 Void Rays at once, you know, suddenly speed Void Rays all turn on their prismatic alignment, they can kill some BCs for sure. But because the way they have this like kind of spread of unit comps, they're just getting run over. There's only 2 left. He's about to win this in record time. It's only half an hour. And honestly, I think we're getting to the point with these challenges where we might have to just put out a challenge that's more about the time than anything, right? Because surely the next frontier is speedrunning it, seeing who can do it the fastest. This is insane.
To finish it properly, showing that I can actually beat the challenge without needing any help from, you know, whoever decides the bugs. So this is actually attempt number 19, which is still very fast. Over the course of these challenges, I got better and better. If I had to rate the challenges, because the thing about these challenges is, guys...
Hold on, did he say attempt 19? I think 19, not 90. He's gotten way fast. Remember his first challenge, it took him like 75 goes. He's gotten faster since then, but still 19 seems very low. And Twitch chat's confirming it's 19, not 90. That's pretty insane. It only took him 19 goes to get this.
Is that the thing that matters the most is the strategy. So at this point, you know, we have all figured the strategy out to beat all these challenges with Terran, which is saying, there we go, we have won it. As you can see in my face, I'm very proud. Even though this game was very smooth. Oh, look at the units lost, by the way, guys. That is actually disgusting. Less than 10k. This is not just my fastest, but my most efficient run ever, which is insane. I was looking at some battlecruiser unit kills. I had one with 93, I believe. Let's see, 28. 122 kills on that Liberator. There we go. 41. That is probably the highest kill lib we have. 112. I think it was a little bit lower. The other was 120, I believe, right? So
remember, these are Protoss unit kills, so they're way more valuable than Terran or Zerg unit kills. The cheapest unit's going to be a Zealot, 100 minerals, as opposed to a 25 mineral Zergling. Oh, I guess there's probes as well, but still, insane.
44. 30. Yeah, these all have a little bit less. It was a very even game with the Liberators, right? Which is fantastic. Units lost looking incredible.
Quick maths, guys. Does anyone want to do the maths on that? Okay, so the maths on the efficiency is he lost 10,000 roughly. And they lost, what, 125, 150, plus another 50, 200, 250, about 300,000? Maybe 290. Say about 290,000 resources they lost for his 10,000. 29 times the efficiency? Obviously, that's just some rough numbers, but 29? In the other challenges, I think it was like 15 times. That's 29 times the efficiency. I mean, he's still pretty much maxed at the end with money in the bank. That's insane. That is absolute slaughter. He really figured out how to play these Protoss like a fiddle, mate. Well done.
But yeah, I forgot what I was talking about before, but I'll get back to it at some point. But anyway, I'm very proud to do it in every single matchup for the first time. I was the first Terran to beat it in all Protoss, all Zerg, and all Terran. Now, I was thinking about doing all random next, but I think random is a bit unrewarding. I talked about it a little bit in the comments. The reason is that if you play against 7 randoms, you're pretty much just gonna hope you get a good unit matchup. It's not necessarily gonna depend on skill or inventing someone new. You're gonna get some matchups that are impossible, and then at some point you're gonna run into a matchup that could be even easier than all the other challenges, and then you're gonna win. So I think I might rather do a mix. Just play like 2 Zerg, 2 Protoss, 2 Terran.
That's awesome. So it's really cool to see. Doing a mix, I've talked to uThermal about how that's got to be the hardest challenge. If you have like 3-3-2 or 2-2-3, sorry, that's going to be really difficult because a mix of all 3 races gives you a mix of all problems. It's way less predictable. It's so hard to deal with. So that's actually really cool. I can't wait to see what he can bring out with that. I think it's going to be a big grind. I think rather than getting it in 19 goes, uThermal's going to have to do like 50 plus. We'll see. He might surprise me once again like he's done many times. Either way, guys, go subscribe to uThermal's channel. Big thanks to him for doing this world record. And once again, pushing the envelope of what you can do to destroy the AI. GG, well played. Thanks everyone for watching. If you guys enjoyed this and you wanted to go check out some of the other versus AI world records, click on some of the other videos on screen right now, which you could do. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good night, everybody.